Selection Sunday special here at WagerTalk. We're going to go through all things March Madness. We're going to talk about some one seeds. We're going to talk about some overseeded teams and possibly some underseeded ones as well. So come hang out with us. Jump in the comment section. I've got Steve Merril, Bryan Power, Rob Veno, and Adam Trigger. You guys have a question for one of the guys? Please drop it in the chat. Welcome in, gentlemen. I know we've got 9 minutes according to CBS. I think we're all kind of synced up. I'm really excited to see everybody's reactions and to see how this kind of starts to play out. Last year's show was a little off the rails, so I just inserted myself this year and said, okay, this has got to be gambling focused. I want to see crazy reactions. I want to see Trig's head explode when Siena doesn't get the 15 seed, and maybe Rob Veno, his UConn Huskies get the 2 seed somehow, even though none of us think they deserve it. Steve Merril, can't wait for 9 SEC teams to get in and me to blow a gasket. So we're going to get right into this. I want to know who you guys, little round table style, and we're going to go in order of what I can see. That is Bryan Power, Adam Trigger, Steve Merril, Rob Veno. Bryan Power, you're up first. Who are the top 4 seeded teams? Michigan just went down to Purdue 45 seconds ago.
It's going to go, I mean, if you want me to give it an order of like the best 1 seed to the weakest 1 seed, it's going to go Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Florida. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Michigan and Florida both still getting the 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, because if they didn't, you have to put somebody in their place, and I'm not prepared to say anybody would be in their place. Certainly not UConn, certainly not Houston.
Okay. Trig, do you agree with the BP synopsis here on that being the top 4 in that order?
Yeah, well, not only do I agree, that's the whole reason that I would be upset if Siena gets a 16 as opposed to a 15. Listen, do I think Siena's going to win their game? Probably not. Would I like to have a chance? Yes. Historically, 15 seeds have at least had a chance. We had Florida Gulf Coast make the great run to the Sweet 16 years ago out of the 15 seed spot. And they just, there's 2 16 seeds that have ever won a game. Fairleigh Dickinson and UMBC, right? So it's like 15. I don't have the number offhand, but there's far more. You had a 15 seed go to the Sweet 16, obviously. Dunk City out in your neck of the woods, Fort Myers, Florida, Florida Gulf Coast. And there's been a history of them winning. So this year, though, the way I'm going to tie this back into Brian's point is those 4 teams that he listed off are so much stronger than the 2 seeds, in my opinion. Like, there is a big drop down from those 4 to, let's call it, 5 through 12. So yeah, like as a someone that's got, a smaller school, my school going, that's why I want the 15, because it's a huge difference having to play a UConn or a Houston or a Purdue or a Michigan State. You're not Florida, you have no chance. Duke, you have 0 chance, right? Those other schools, I think you might have just a tiny little bit of a chance.
All right, Steve Merril, Florida off a weird loss. And I say weird because there was a point in time here, I would say over the last 3 weeks, where just lay it with Florida, especially on the road. They're going to blow everybody out. And then all of a sudden, here comes Vanderbilt, who really didn't look all that impressive versus Arkansas today. Sounds like they're still going to get in. Duke was on the ropes. Arizona kind of on the ropes there a couple of different times. And then, of course, Michigan has been one of the worst ATS teams in the country over the last few weeks, particularly in the month of March. They are now 1-7 against the spread over the last 3 weeks. Goes down to Purdue. Are those still the 4 number 1 seeds?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Michigan losing, but I don't see why they would get bumped when Florida also lost. Michigan's been ahead of Florida all season. Duke barely won, as you said. I think Duke and Michigan have been the 2 best teams overall this year. A lot of people keep saying Arizona, but Michigan's size down low from 2-point range in both offense and defense. When you have to win 6 consecutive games in March, that 3-point variance really hurts teams, where Michigan, I think, can get it done from the interior. The one team that maybe has a chance of sneaking in would be Houston. I think they're probably the 5th best team right now. But, yeah, I think Florida is a very dangerous squad. They're starting to peak at the right time as the defending national champs. And I like the fact that Michigan and Florida lost and that Duke was banged up and didn't play great. Always like to kind of take teams that don't head into the tournament on a high note, yet are still a highly seeded team. They've done historically very well over the years.
Rob Veno, you and I spoke about this yesterday on the last call full court press mix-up that we've been doing here on Saturdays. And I said, hey, I want to bet against these these teams that are in that Ken Palm top 10, right? We just went through the 4. Everybody pretty much agrees. Duke's getting in, Arizona's getting in, Florida's getting in, and Michigan's getting in. But fading those teams against the spread in their conference tournaments, and even a couple of weeks prior to that, have been really, really good. Do you think that these 4 teams are going to be the 4 1 seeds? And do you think that trend continues where maybe they're being just a little overvalued?
Well, I think both of those are true. First off, I agree with the way Bryan listed them out, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in order of strength. Secondly, I would say, Kelly, yeah, all 4 have been overvalued for a while. Arizona, I guess the only one that came through yesterday and covered a number against Houston. Michigan, they had the benefit of sitting back and watching Florida lose yesterday, UConn lose yesterday, and they knew their 1 seed wasn't going anywhere today. They were going to be there by virtue of default, basically. So I can almost justify that loss to Purdue. The Florida loss, I guess, Vandy had a little bit of revenge, and Vandy wasn't at full strength when they played them the first time. So that could be a case for Florida, but I don't think any of them are harmed. I think really quickly, all 4 of them, if they all have one common denominator, they all rebound like crazy. Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Florida. If you're going to rebound against these guys, you better come to play. Ask Houston, who's tried it twice against Arizona, came up short both times. And I would say this, as I go through these 2s, as they're projected out right now, Iowa State, UConn, Houston, Purdue, I would say my eye test tells me that Arkansas should be 2. And Arkansas might be the 5th best team in there. Arkansas maybe should be the 5 seed overall, and they're listed way down at 4 right now. So I think Arkansas is probably getting shortchanged. We'll see how it shakes out here.
And maybe that's kind of a thing that you want to see, right? The year that UConn was shortchanged, they went in and shocked everybody. So maybe that's actually a better thing for Arkansas. I know obviously they'd be playing a different schedule, but yeah, I was very impressed with Arkansas today, but maybe Vandy had let out that sigh of relief after beating the big dog named Florida. Bryan Power, I know you wanted to interject there about the 15 seeds with Adam Trigger, and you sent me a message on the side, and I had no idea that many 15 seeds had actually won the games outright.
Yeah, so just to follow up a point Trig made about what a difference it makes to be a 15 seed versus a 16. Obviously, he laid out the only 2 16s that have ever won a first-round game. We all remember them. Trig and I remember Fairleigh Dickinson quite vividly from our time at Turning Stone when we had them outright. But there have been 11 15 seeds to win a first-round game. So that's quite a jump. 2 all-time versus 11. Last time it happened, I think we're also at Turning Stone for this one. Trig, correct me if I'm wrong. Princeton over Arizona. I think that you and I may have been watching that one as well.
Yeah. I didn't remember that was a 15. Yeah.
And then
Lehigh over Duke.
Yes,
Lehigh over Duke.
That was the last time Lehigh was in the tournament, I believe. I just wanted to follow up a couple points that came up when we went around the horn there. When you talk about differentiating these 4 teams, we think are going to be number 1 seeds. One thing that sticks out to me with Arizona is how not 3-point reliant they are. I think, in modern basketball, obviously we talk about rim and 3 rate. Arizona, and maybe somebody has this stat handy. Last I looked, I think they were bottom 3 in the country in 3-point attempts. To me, it says a lot when you're able to win without that kind of 3-point variance consistently going your way. Now, I will say the one negative about Arizona is that they ran into a team like Wisconsin, who we have seen can certainly get hot from behind the arc. Arizona may be the 1 seed that it has the least chance of catching back up if they're on the wrong end of a kill shot. And then last point I'll make, Arkansas, if they shoot the 3 like they did today, they absolutely can beat any team in the country.
All right. Well, this bracket show is about to start here any minute now. The clock just struck 0 on my TV, and now we've got a Ford commercial. So as long as you guys are synced up with us, there will be no spoilers. If you are not synced up with us, sorry in advance if we happen to ruin it for you. Steve Merril, I want to pivot here while we're waiting on this first region to come out. And I want to talk about defensive metrics. And those are the types of teams I'm looking to make a run here in March. Obviously, you go on Ken Palm and you see the top 10 teams, and most of them are top 10 in offense and defensive metrics. But how much do you weigh in the defensive side of things when looking for teams like not so much 15 seeds, but let's just say middle of the pack seeds that can possibly start to spring some upsets here. I mean, it's hard for me to go really deep, and that's why we have Adam Trigger here on the show so that he can talk about, and Bryan Power can talk about MAC schools that I know nothing about. And all jokes aside, I want to find teams that are great defensively that may be able to catch some of these potent offenses off guard.
Yeah, I think, Kelly, more than great defensively, you want to look at pace maybe. And most of the time, the slow down, half-court slow teams are good defensive teams by definition, because when you're playing slow, you're not going to score a lot, so you better be good defensively. But those are the type of teams I like to look for upset alert, especially when they're playing a fast, up-tempo team. And if you look at throughout history, some of the Cinderella stories, Loyola Chicago, a decade ago, very slow half-court team. Butler, when they made the back-to-back runs with Brad Stevens to the finals, came up a bit short. More of a slowdown style. VCU and Shaka Smart, half-court havoc defense back when they went from the first four to the final four. I think that's a good little cheat code to use, is to look at pace and matchups. We're about to get the matchups here in the next few minutes, so we'll see how they happen. But that's a team like Alabama who's been very aggressively good the last few years. They're not even in top 100 sometimes in defensive efficiency. And even though they make Elite Eight runs, they can't get it all done because they fall short when it's on the line defensively. So I do agree defense is important, but I think half-court slowdown defense is also a good handicapping metric to use.
All right, Bryan Power, you got destroyed by Pacers fans last June in the NBA. And then our good friend Ralph Michaels has pissed off every single Miami of Ohio fan. Before we get into it, right, Duke #1 overall seed. Is Miami of Ohio getting in? We saw just a few minutes ago the market crash. I think it was on Kalshi, just absolutely crash on Miami of Ohio. Do you think they get in? Siena, number 16 seed, Trig.
Oh, my God. That is so fucking bad. And it's in South Carolina. What the fuck? That is awful. That is so bad.
Sorry to interrupt you, Bryan.
So bad.
And they don't get to win a tournament game.
I said, I'm not talking. I'm just going to forget what that is. Wow.
But I got to know, is Miami of Ohio getting in?
Yes,
CBS said them as the first four in a couple minutes ago.
Miami, Ohio will go to Dayton. They will be one of the last four. The last four in you asked me the #1 seeds. I spoke with some confidence. I'm going to speak the last four in with some confidence. Miami, Ohio. This is in any particular order. Miami, Ohio, Missouri, Texas, SMU.
Okay.
Kelly, CBS flashed this, and I took a photo of it a few minutes ago. They've got Miami of Ohio as the last four in. I don't think this was official, but that's what CBS is saying. So
yeah, that's their bracketology thing.
It's a little surprising that the markets would crash. You would think if anything would have gone the other way.
I sent it in our Slack channel. I was also kind of shocked because I thought, oh boy, Ralph is going to just get absolutely obliterated here. St. John's, Northern Iowa. Rob Veno, you love these small schools. Tell me a little bit about Northern Iowa. Patino looked really good in that win over UConn yesterday. I particularly liked his speech to his players, asking them where they grew up and who made them so soft. I thought that was a wonderful speech.
I might steal that. I need to start using that.
To run through a brick wall for the man, but now they face a Northern Iowa team. Talk to me about that matchup.
Yeah, Northern Iowa is one of those deliberate schools that maybe you don't want to match up with if you're St. John's because you want to play pace. They will press Northern Iowa, but Northern Iowa is pretty efficient ball handling, and they shoot threes. They're going to stick to what they do best. And that's a team, guys, that mid-major has come on as the season's gone on. Northern Iowa wins the Missouri Valley, of that conference that was run by Belmont all season long. But Northern Iowa did look like the best team in that league. They'll play slow. They'll shoot threes. They handle the ball. They're pretty composed. And that might rattle a team like St. John's that wants to go really, really fast. It could work in the reverse as well. But Northern Iowa is not somebody you look to draw in the first round.
All right, Trig, I want to bounce back to you really quickly. I thought it was really interesting last night. I think it was you that gave me Cal Baptist yesterday on the show. Was that true? Were you on Cal Baptist last night?
No, I was on the other side. My only loss in the last 4 days was in a horrific collapse by Utah Valley.
Okay, well, sorry. I was going to give you props for Cal Baptist. I think it was fading Trent, maybe. I can't remember. Regardless, talk about Cal Baptist. That's an interesting poll there in the East region.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about, I mean, listen, the way last night's game played out is what you have to worry about with Cal Baptist because Dominique Daniels is player of the year in the WAC. And so when I referenced Utah Valley's collapse last night, he hit 3 threes in the final 2 minutes to win the game for his team. And he is like, he is that good of a player at that level where he can just go off go for 30, gets to the rim. Like he's not even like this great shooter. He's just got that as part of his game. He's just an all-around great player. Martell Williams, an all-around great player. They play a really hard, tough, packed-in defense. So it's like, yeah, Cal Baptist, they're a veteran.
UConn just got announced. They are playing Furman. Tell me why UConn's going to lose as a 2-seed, Trig. I'm going to let you keep going.
In Philly, Kel, I can go to this game.
That's a bad draw. Listen, Furman's a tough listen, if Furman's a 15, then I guess Siena does deserve to be a 16.
Bad draw to Trig.
That is a bad draw. Furman, a couple of years back, a slightly better Furman team knocked Virginia out of the tournament. Bob Ritchie's always got a good team. And his team's problems early this year, they turned the ball over like crazy. They've been great for like 5 weeks now. Rob and I talked about that during the conference tournament last week multiple times, how they've cleaned up the turnover issues. They've figured out sort of like how to play together. You go back to the beginning of the year, Furman was a mess, an absolute mess. And they came such a long way. They have, like, I'll say this, they have a way better chance to give a game to UConn than Siena did. I don't know who's getting this. Who's going to get the 15? Like, who are they putting at the 16s if they've got Furman at a 15?
Well, Furman was projected as a 15.
Go.
It's
We're
going to be
getting these games populated here on the Odds Logic screen, guys. Really quickly, I want to chime in. Make sure you have your Odds Logic screen open. If you want to be on a delay, you can use the free WagerTalk odds screen, but oddslogic.com/Kelly in Vegas, just so you guys can see as these lines start to come out, because of course, it's exciting to see the bracket come out, but the real bread and butter is going to be when those numbers come out from Vegas, from our friends over at the Superbook, or maybe at Circa. I'm curious to see who starts to pop first. Steve Merril, first thoughts on the East region. Any teams you think are going to maybe be public dogs?
We'll see. There aren't a lot of you got North Dakota State as a 14 seed against Michigan State. I don't think the public will be jumping on them. Central Florida against UCLA. Furman, South Florida. These aren't real public. These aren't big names. You're not seeing like a Louisville as a dog or ACC team. I'll say real quick, by the way, Northern Iowa, of 365 teams, tempo ratings I use, they are 365th. They are the slowest team in the country. And I just talked about that. St. John's plays up-tempo, forces turnovers. So we do get that matchup there. Also, we talked about the turnover problems Furman has. Furman takes a lot of three-point shots, and that's where handicapping March Madness is so tricky in a one-game scenario, because if they're hot from three, they'll be taking a ton of them. You can beat anybody. And that's what they're going to have to do, obviously, against UConn. But your guess is as good as mine if the three-point shots are falling. And that's what makes Cinderella upsets happen. But, when we're talking about 5 or 6 games to win the championship, and we'll talk about championship odds later in the show, I don't like teams that rely and take 46% of their shots from three like Furman, because at some point you're going to go cold.
Bryan Power, what do you got?
So just to go back to what Trig was saying about who stole his 15 seed from the Siena States, it's either going to be UMBC or Long Island. I think would be, because they were both projected as 16s, and Furman was a 15. Steve just mentioned teams that are overly, easy for me to say, reliant on shooting the three. Let's talk about one of those teams. I know Rob, I know Trig, I know Steve probably knows this, Kelly, you as well. Louisville, I believe, is number 1 in the country in terms of percentage of attempts from behind the arc. And Steve is absolutely correct. That gives you a high ceiling. It also gives you a low floor. If the shots are falling, and obviously Brown has to be healthy for Louisville, you talked about, I think a lot of people are going to pick South Florida to knock out Louisville in the round of 64. I could be wrong. Okay, we just saw these brackets, but I could see South Florida coming off a conference tournament win, that being a popular pick. But Louisville, it'd be interesting if Louisville did get by USF and then had to play Michigan State, because obviously I don't need to tell everybody watching here, Tom Izzo traditionally through the years, he's been always very good at seemingly building that lid over the rim when it comes to opponent three-point shooting.
Yeah, and Brian Kelly, something else about Louisville, they were much weaker on the road this year, and I don't think that's a fluke. When you take 54% of your field goal attempts from beyond the arc, you're going to shoot better inherently at home where you're comfortable, you're used to the sight lines. Road record, neutral court records is something to pay attention to, because the rest of the season, nobody has home court advantage, which I think in all of the sports is big as in college basketball still this day. So that's another reason Louisville is not going to win 6 straight games, probably not even 3 or 4 straight games. They could definitely be a team to fade. And as Brian said, Michigan State, textbook on how you win come March with Tom Izzo for decades now. Good rebounding, tenacious defense, and a coach that knows how to win on top of that. So, yeah, Louisville, I don't think gets past the first weekend.
Rob Veno, now that we're kind of settling in here, I want to talk about this Kansas Cal Baptist game. Trig gave us a nice synopsis on this Cal Baptist team, but the biggest red flag for betting on Kansas all season long has been Darren Peterson. Whether he's playing, whether he's not playing, sounds like he's probably going to be. I know you're also our pseudo NBA guy doing profit picks there with our friend Hakeem Profit. Is Darren Peterson going to show out so that he gets that number 1 overall pick, or does it not matter?
No, I think he has to, Kel. I mean, these freshman kids, Darius Acuff, we see him day in and day out moving up the charts. Boozer from Duke, he has to, I would think, show well in this tournament. I'd imagine he would play well. Tough for Cal Baptist to game plan for Darren Peterson until you actually see him on the floor. You know, they don't have a scrimmage squad that they can go against and say, hey, you be Darren Peterson and we'll figure out how to stop you. So going to be interesting how they attempt to do that.
All right, Long Island does get that 16, Bryan Power, as we get into the West region versus Arizona. As these other ones start to populate, Villanova is the 8. Trig, talk to me about some of these matchups as they start to come out and what you're looking for early, right? So we had nothing yet on the odds logic screen, but as that starts to come out, we will let you guys know. Utah State will be playing Villanova, but when you're looking at the bracket from a gambling perspective, right? And you're going, all right, who do I want to bet on? Obviously, I'm a dog better, so I'm looking at dogs I think can spring the upset. What are you looking for as these start to populate?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm really only looking at the first round. It's easy. Like you start to, it's, for example, like in my head, I'm looking at the bracket over here. I'm like, man, I'd love UCLA to play UConn in the second round, because I think UCLA probably matches up pretty well with them. But that game is not a thing yet, and I think that's why, like, if you bet sports and that's really what you're into, you don't do brackets as much, because it's like I try to just start focusing on the games that are there, not the games that might happen and then eventually won't happen. So I guess the thing I will do, we've got a region here. I know that the other one has started to populate, but just going back to the first region, I could see Ohio State struggling with TCU. I try to, like, kind of, look at one that's like, all right, that's a matchup I'm gonna probably like, because I've liked TCU's guards all season. I love the way that they pressure opposing guards, and of course with Ohio State, if you can kind of shut Thornton down, you have a great chance to win. So that's one that pops out for me. And Bryan Power, they put Long Island as a 16. So I'm really curious who's getting the
UMBC. It's got to be UMBC. If you want to throw something, Trig, real quick, if you want to go crazy, in that first region, they revealed the only team that was on a different seed line than what Lenardi projected was Siena, who he had as a 15. He got the right seed line for all the other teams in that first region.
Yeah, and listen, they're probably rewarding. Like, I don't mind UMBC getting rewarded as a league winner. Like, they won their league and they won their conference tournament. Siena finished 3rd in the MAC, so I think they're getting penalized for that a little bit. But it was a historically bad America East Conference this year. I would have had UMBC as a 16, but yeah, it is what it is.
So, hey, Kelly, we've got another one of those 3-point teams that just popped. Wisconsin is top 5 in the nation also, percentage of shots from 3, and they're playing High Point. High Point's got like a top 60 3-point defense, but what's interesting to me is the winner plays Arkansas-Hawaii, and I don't know if Hawaii can beat Arkansas, but Hawaii allows from the fewest 3-point shots and has one of the best 3-point defense in the country. So if we do get that Wisconsin-Hawaii matchup in the second round, that would be something to keep an eye on. But Wisconsin, kind of like a Louisville, another team that plays much different than in years past. They play much faster tempo than they used to. They're not the Wisconsin of old, so I think they're another team that could go out sooner than later in the NCAA tournament this year.
I've got one for Rob Veno. Kennesaw State. They got the cash for us yesterday. Very nice. They're going to be a 14 seed playing 3 seed Gonzaga. We mentioned some of those teams we were looking to bet on, teams we were looking to fade. Gonzaga's always been one of those teams to me that I never know what to do with. They just absolutely cruise by in their conference every single year. What do they have? 3? They're 30-3 on the season. 3 losses. And what do we make of that matchup at Kennesaw State? The first game I watched of them all season was yesterday.
Yeah, well, what we know is they're going to give us 40 minutes. Like I said yesterday, it's an interesting team because they actually had a player kicked off mid-season due to a betting scandal. And not just any player, one of their top scorers, and they still recovered. They work the boards. They work hard defensively. They play extremely fast. Gonzaga likely will run with them. I wouldn't lay a boatload of points with Gonzaga against Kennesaw. I'll say that. I think it's interesting right here, guys, real quick. I'll jump that Mizzou got to play a game in St. Louis. Not that far to travel if you are Mizzou, against Miami of Florida, who, as Trig has mentioned a few times, played a fairly weak ACC schedule.
Steve Merril, I know Steve Merril wants to drop in, but we finally are getting these odds starting to populate here on Odds Logic. So, Steve, I'll let you chime in really quickly, and then I kind of want to run through some of these early lines we're seeing.
Yeah, so the Gonzaga game is another example. I talked about playing slow-down half-court teams against fast teams. There's another angle I like, and that's when we have fast versus fast, and that's what we have with Kennesaw and Gonzaga. This is a terrible matchup for Kennesaw because Kennesaw is a fast, up-tempo team that relies to get to the free throw line for a high percentage of their points. That doesn't work when you're playing a better team that plays fast like Gonzaga. So that is something else to look for. The one time you like to play fast teams is when they both play fast. You play the better squad. Kelly, you've got one more chance this season to watch Kennesaw State play.
Okay, good. All right, Trig, live reaction here. Siena, 27.5-point underdog to Duke.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's a 16. It is what it is. Like I said, I would, again, I didn't think they were going to win. Getting a 15 would have given us a chance. What do you think? Like, is Furman? I bet Furman will be like a 17.5-point underdog to UConn.
Furman's not out yet. UCLA, Central Florida, UCLA -6.5. St. John's 9.5 over Northern Iowa. Kansas 12.5 over Cal Baptist is out. Here you go. You mentioned you like TCU. TCU is a 3.5-point underdog to Ohio State. North Dakota State is catching 14.5 versus Michigan State. And South Florida is a 7.5-point underdog to Louisville. All right, Bryan Power, I know you wanted to jump in, but I had to get to the odds logic.
No, absolutely. I think that's what the people want to hear. I think, Rob mentioned Missouri getting the draw in St. Louis. What a draw for Missouri. This was a team that I think a lot of people thought was first four. I thought people thought they were Dayton bound. Not only are they not first four bound, they get to play, in the Show Me State in the first round. I think that is a incredibly fortunate draw for what I think is one of the worst at-large teams in the field, and it's NC State, who I'm not going to sit here, pound the desk, and say, my God, NC State deserved to avoid Dayton because Lord knows they did not play well down the stretch. But, relative to what the bracketologists, if you will, were telling us coming into this selection, they said Missouri was going to go to Dayton, not NC State. So very interesting that is one difference that we have here as the actual brackets have been released. And I think Utah State kind of got hosed as a 9, matchup against Villanova as an 8. That feels like an overseeded Villanova against an underseeded Utah State. I don't know if anyone agrees.
So Connecticut's 19 over Furman, by the way. 19 is Connecticut.
Yeah, that's
Kelly,
big.
Real quick on these lines.
That's too many.
Props to DraftKings because they're putting totals up. Nobody else is doing that. Caesars is dipping their head before FanDuel in some spots, but you got 6 at one book, 7.5 on Louisville at the other. Caesars -6. I mean, this is like 20 years ago when we get 2-point middles in college basketball.
I was just going to say those who have multiple books right now.
These are short-lived numbers right now. They're gonna hedge together in the next 5 minutes. So anybody watching this on replays and be, what are they talking about? 7.5 or 6. Like one of those isn't going to be available. But yeah, props to DraftKings. I mean, they're the first out. It looks like they're putting totals out, which nobody's doing.
FanDuel's already 16.5 with Sparty.
Yeah.
That line's moved 2 points since the opener. We're seeing money on South Florida coming in there at FanDuel. I think you're absolutely right. This is like old school where if you have a ton of books at your disposal, you can start picking off numbers here early and often.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State was 2.5 at DraftKings. It was 3.5 at Caesars. It's now 2.5 -122, and then Caesars just went down to 2.5. So you're getting a plus money middle there, like a plus money cross bet. It's kind of wild. And then FanDuel's popping numbers on the Wisconsin-Arkansas game, and nobody else has one yet, even though FanDuel was third at some other games. So it's very strange to me how they're doing this. I guess they just have some teams they're more ready for than others.
Yeah, Arkansas is a 15.5-point favorite, just opened at FanDuel over Hawaii. Wisconsin -11.5 versus High Point. Trig, any thoughts there? You were on Hawaii the other night, weren't you?
No, well, I should have been. That was when I left
rainbow.
off.
I was on Hawaii the other. I got it from somebody.
Yeah, that was a good.
Maybe it was from Art. I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I love this Arkansas team so much. I don't think I could go against them the first round. But do you have it? I don't know why my screen's not refreshing, but do you have a Northern Iowa St. John's number yet?
Yeah,
has
we
that
gave
one
that up just
populated?
a few minutes ago.
Yes.
Let's see where
What,
we're
what's
at.
well, yeah, what's the number for that one?
Nine and a half.
Yeah.
Settled at 9.5,
like
10, 130 and a half.
I think I'm going to like Northern Iowa quite a bit there. That's just one I know. I know it was in the last quadrant, but they got healthy within the last couple weeks. Like they were a team that was missing a couple of players throughout most of the beginning of Missouri Valley play. Rob can fill me in the name of the best player is escaping me, but they looked awesome in the Missouri Valley tournament. And I just think that like they're getting evaluated on their whole season, but they were like severely shorthanded for like a stretch of Missouri Valley play. And then you got a St. John's team that can't really shoot.
Yeah,
So
and Caesar just went to 10. I think we're going to see a lot of
That's
St.
a good
John's
bet.
money. I honestly, I think you can wait. Rob, would you agree? We all sat there yesterday and listened to Trig tell everybody that UConn was a fraud and St. John's won that game pretty easily. They looked almost too good in winning that game outright. And now I think that's what everybody with the short memory. Hi, CT Bats. Welcome to the show. Who is putting him on the screen right now? Not me. I am not. Anyway, stay tuned. Anyway, he's probably tuned up, as a matter of fact. I hope you guys are all tuned up. All my friends are out at the bar drinking right now, and I'm here for all of you. Back to Rob Veno. 10. Are we waiting? Are we waiting to bet you and I? If we're starting to see 10s, I mean, people are going to want to bet St. John's hand over fist.
Yeah, I mean, you and I, to Adam's point, I mean, there's a trio of guys on that team, Campbell, Bond, and Weisbrod, who are, make up the perimeter players on that team. They weren't all together for a good portion of this season, much like Furman. I mean, remember, Trig mentioned it early, but Furman was without two of their best players. And come conference tournament time, we couldn't get enough of Furman. So these types of things, if you've been following it, real quick, just to throw or take the umbrella off of, or maybe even ask Steve if this would be a play here, because he said when you play fast versus fast, you definitely want to bet the better team. South Florida and Louisville can't get more of a fast versus fast. Louisville at -7.5 would seem to be the better team, but I don't think I would want any part of Louisville in that game, tell you the truth, with the Alabama assistant Brian Hodgson running the show for an ascending South Florida team. I mean, is it specific? Do you just do it, or is it situational? Just
it's situational. I mean, for me, it's matchup. South Florida's average defending the three. They gave up an average amount of three. So Louisville, it's going to come down to can you predict if Louisville's hitting their shots or not, which is very random. South Florida does get to the free throw line a lot, and I think Louisville does an average job there. I don't see a real matchup edge, at least initially, in that game, Rob. But I was talking more about Kennesaw, because the problem is when you're laying a big favorite like Gonzaga, you need a high-scoring game by definition to cover the big number. And when both teams play fast, you get more points. It enables a team to win and cover the bigger numbers. So I think it applies more with a Gonzaga team against a bad Kennesaw team, which Kelly gets to watch one more time.
One more time. No, it was really funny because I was like sitting there. I was like, this is my life on Saturday night. What happened?
What state is it in, Kelly? I'll give you that. It's Kennesaw. I'll give you a clue. Kennesaw is not a state. Now. Kennesaw is not a state.
Well, I know Kennesaw is not a state.
Pretty sure it's Georgia. Am I correct, Rob? Is it Georgia?
Right.
It's Georgia.
Yeah. I thought it was Georgia, but I wasn't 100% sure either, Kelly. I thought you might know since it's closer to you.
Here's a good one that just populated. Santa Clara gets a 10 seed over Kentucky. If you guys remember, Santa Clara hung in there pretty tough in their conference game. And I think they even sprung one of the upsets over, was it St.
They beat St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Smoking herb Sunday.
All right, we're losing Steve Merril on the Wi-Fi. I don't know if it's Steve's Wi-Fi or if it's mine, but we're gonna mute his mic here and see if he can't get a refresh. Our producer Dan Alexander can maybe help me with that real quick. Bryan Power, some thoughts on the Midwest region here with Miami of Ohio, SMU getting to play Tennessee.
Not a terrible matchup for Miami, Ohio. They deserve to be in. I know it's kind of a historically bad at-large resume, but look, nobody. Well, I don't want to say nobody, but I am a big proponent of saying, hey, records can be misleading. And look, Miami, they obviously played a very weak non-conference strength of schedule, but games have to matter. the fact is they were undefeated in the regular season. I think SMU is not the worst matchup for them. If Edwards comes back, though, SMU is a significantly better team. So we shall see. I guess, look, there wasn't a lot of controversy this year about which 68 teams were going to make it, including Dayton. And it looks like it's going to be the 68 that were projected. The only difference being that Missouri avoided the first 4 and NC State got sent to Dayton. Like I said earlier, Trig, UMBC got not only a 16, but they have to do a play-in against Howard. So I have no idea who stole the 15 from your Siena State.
Well, Tennessee State, but I was okay with that. I felt like they were pretty close. I got to look. I
guess it will be Tennessee. No, there's Tennessee. Yep, there's Tennessee State as a 15. But did Lenardi have them as a 15?
I think so.
No, he didn't.
Was the one who? Okay.
Wait, no, hold on.
I can't believe UMBC is in the play-in game. The winner of the America East, and they won their conference tournament. I mean, UMBC, I expected to be a 16. But
Howard's actually a very good team, too. Howard beat UNC Wilmington on the road this year when Wilmington had one of their best players who missed the rest of the season. Otherwise, Wilmington probably gets into the tournament and wins the CAA. So the thing is, Trig, I mean, Siena got a 16 seed because there weren't any really bad teams that made it this year. You didn't get any of those, below 500 teams that snuck in by winning their conference tournament.
Those conferences were really bad, though. You have to, if you look at Ken Palm's rating for conferences, the America East and the MEAC were very, very low. So they probably just had the conference in there, and it was okay, the winner from the conference is in the playing game.
Correct.
Steve, before you cut out, I had a question. Last year, you and I did some videos, and we're going to do some this week over on the WagerTalk YouTube channel as well. But more importantly, you and I did one last year, and it pissed a lot of people off. I mentioned Bryan Power getting all the Pacers fans mad. You had Kentucky fans.
Kentucky, yeah, I remember now. Okay.
Mad last year.
I'd forgotten that, to be honest. Yeah,
when you said fade this blue blood, and it was them. Are we fading them against this Santa Clara team?
Was I even right? That's how short term I don't remember them doing much last year, but I've done this for so long now. My 30th year of doing March Madness as a professional. I've followed it for 40 some years that I don't honestly remember. I can remember 1980s Super Bowls and World Series. I can't remember 2 years ago. It all runs together. But Kentucky's an interesting team because I've had it. You and I talked about this on the Saturday shows this year, Kelly. I started looking for a reason to play them in December and January because they're so talented. They're so well paid that, they got off to that slow start. And Pope even called them out and said, he called himself that. He goes, I've done a terrible job coaching when they were 2-3, I think. They had a $25 million payroll. So I kind of kept waiting for maybe that buy signal with Kentucky. I don't know if we ever really got it this season. I think they've got the talent to win probably in any given game, but not to win 6 in a row once again, like we talked about.
Kentucky -2.5. Wow. That is
Santa Clara. When I got cut out there, by the way, I'm hardwired. I think it's I'm running all this AI database stuff.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I know exactly. Look at me as I'm pixelated like Max Headroom. No, Santa Clara's a really good team, and even if they'd lost the semifinal to St. Mary's, they still had about a 65% chance of giving an at-large bid a week ago. And then once they beat them, I think they were basically in, obviously, and they lost to Gonzaga. So interesting matchup there, and we'll see if Kentucky's for real or not.
All right, if you guys are missing out, it's because you don't have your Odds Logic screen open. oddslogic.com/Kelly in Vegas. Head over there. You guys get a free week on me, and then you guys can keep up with everything fun that we're doing here on the Selection Sunday show here on Wager Talk. We're going to go until we're not going to go anymore. I haven't quite decided. I know the show over here is probably going to be over in 15, 20 minutes, but I want to talk about as these games start to populate. Trig, go ahead.
I got a question for everyone. I'm just curious, how many points are you giving Miami of Ohio for home court in Dayton? Brian, can you enlighten us as how far is Oxford from Dayton? It's not far at all, right?
No, that's a hop, skip, and a jump. That's the same quadrant of Ohio there. That's going to be a short trip. That's something else to consider. Very good point.
Did you ever pass out in Dayton?
Well, we don't need to discuss
was
that,
it close
Steve.
enough for that?
This is a family
he almost
program.
passed out.
Definitely not. This is definitely a gambling show.
And we don't need to talk about that either, Trig. I'll tell you what. I saw the old Union special. I had to dial back the clock.
Let's talk more betting on this family program tonight on Sunday.
Yes. But no, and look, Miami traveled well. I can tell you. So I was at the semifinals of the MAC tournament Friday night, and it was sort of disappointing attendance, which I predicted because I'm assuming Miami, Ohio fans just didn't want to come after their team got upset on Thursday morning by UMass. And it was a good, nice crowd last night for the final between Akron and Toledo. So Miami will travel. I can bet. So I would give them, obviously you're not going to give them the full 3 for home court, but I'd give them a little bit of a bump, Trig. And we do, by the way, I love when our chat picks up on our conversations. They start doing investigative work for us. I think it's going to be Tennessee State was actually projected as a 4 by Lenardi. So it's going to be either Idaho or Lehigh that I think robs you. And I don't think I agree with
Lehigh will be the 16 seed.
Okay, so Idaho took your 15 seed, I think, Trig. We'll see.
That's surprising to me. I guess I didn't think they had the Big Sky that much further, higher than maybe they did.
They were the 7th seed coming into the tournament.
That's what I'm saying. I thought for sure they'd be a 16.
Wow.
And Lehigh should definitely be a 16. The Patriots.
I'd like to go back and talk about MAC basketball because one of the games that I think is going to be really intriguing, Akron plus 9.5 versus Texas Tech yesterday. Akron really pissed me off with that first half performance, but I did text Trig and I said, "Is this a second half team?" And him and Veno both said, "Yeah." And of course, they did cover the second half spread, so not a lot of bloodshed on that -8. But this is a Texas Tech team that. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I firmly believe the Big 12 is the best basketball conference top to bottom, and that is with my Kansas State Wildcats nearing the bottom with Utah. That being said, Texas Tech, I have a 50-1 ticket. It's been dead on arrival for weeks now, and that's fine. Iowa State, I have 30-1, so maybe they can make a splash here in March for me. But this Akron team is scary. 9.5 here versus Texas Tech. Bryan Power, do you have a thought there early? Because this is an Akron team. Yesterday was the first time I watched Akron all season long.
Yeah, so obviously Texas Tech, no Toppin. They surprised in the first games without him. Obviously, they went, going to Hilton and beating Iowa State, caught us all by surprise, at least caught me by surprise. Akron could compete in that game. What do we got for a number there? Do we have a number for that?
9.5.
That kind of honestly seems about right. Look, Akron could absolutely give them a game. Texas Tech initially was a team I wanted to fade. So, yeah, they could give them a game for sure. Akron can. By the way, as I look now,
they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country, yeah. Kelly. Both teams take a lot of threes. But the one thing I'll say, Brian, is Akron gives up a lot of threes on defense. So, there again, it's like predicting turnovers in football in one given game, right? It's like who's going to be the better 3-point shooting team. But if you're getting almost double digits in a game with both teams are taking a lot of threes, then you do have a shot that Akron could keep it close, probably.
Yeah. Going back to something I said, back to something I said. TC about Villanova and Utah State, possibly that being a game where I didn't necessarily agree with the seeds and maybe the lower seeded team was better. Odds makers agreed. I saw Utah State opened as a slight favorite despite being the 9 seed. That's not they should be the craziest thing.
Yeah,
Utah State should be like a 3-point favorite there. They should be. That's a bargain if they're 1. That's probably a good bet on Utah State.
Let me open up the odds logic screen. While we do that, we're seeing the South region start to populate. Penn just won the Ivy League as an 8.5-point underdog to Yale earlier. That was a good one for me, Veno. Talk to me about how you think Penn is going to match up here versus Illinois. Illinois might be one of those blue blood basketball teams we might be fading tomorrow, Steve Merril.
It's just amazing that Penn was able to do what they did without Ethan Roberts, right? The best player on the team. Yeah. And Fran McCaffrey gets them through Saturday against Harvard, gets them through Sunday against Yale, wins both games in overtime. Today's was a miracle 3 to send it to overtime. Congratulations to Penn. To me, the way they're constructed now without Roberts doesn't seem like they're a 14. So Illinois probably gets a break in that instance. But they probably expected Yale to fill that slot, and they're not filling it. That seems high for the way Penn is right now. And like I say, congratulations to what they did this weekend, but I don't know that correlates to playing a Big Ten team, 4 days from now.
Let me jump in here, and I'm going to get some reactions from some of you guys as the South region populates on Odds Logic. Troy is a 14.5-point underdog to Nebraska. Does anybody have an opinion there? We all know Nebraska has – go ahead, Bryan Power.
I had Troy when they won the conference final Obviously taking advantage of a severely fatigued Georgia Southern team. I thought Troy did not impress me in that game. Troy had one of the easiest paths to a conference tournament win you will ever see. They got remember the Sun Belt does that weird bracket that really fit that you just keep getting buys. They got a double bye all the way to the semifinals. They drew Southern Miss, who I believe Trig was playing their 4th game in 4 days in the semi, and then they got Georgia Southern playing an unprecedented 6th game in 6 days. And next thing you know, the Troy Trojans are in the NCAA tournament. They did not necessarily, even though that was a winning bet for me on Monday, that was not necessarily a team that impressed me at that like low seed level.
Really quickly, I got to do a little self-promotion. I have a Survivor Madness going on over at Splash Sports right now. $25 to enter. There is a $200,000 overlay right before I got on here. I was like, oh my God, they're going to kill me. They're going to absolutely kill me if we do not fill this. $250,000 guaranteed with a $200,000 overlay. I made a short link for you guys here on WagerTalk, wt.buzz/KIV to join. You have up until the last game tips off here on Thursday. So make sure you guys head over there and get involved. I really enjoy doing those contests over on Splash. They make March Madness, football season, and everything else just a little more fun, except for golf season. I know this is not a golf show, but we have had 3 chokes, you guys. The players, we had another choke. Oberg choked today, along with Matsuyama and Shane Lowry. So anyway, we're going to go back to basketball because
so Kelly, I got the officials taking snapshots here from my records of the TV screen. This is how I roll. But the last 4 in, Miami of Ohio, SMU, Texas, NC State. First 4 out, I guess this is in order: Oklahoma, Auburn, San Diego State, Indiana. I would assume that means Oklahoma was the first one out.
Love to see 2 SEC
Miami is the last one in.
Out.
What's that?
I love to see 2 SEC teams get left out.
Oh, that's the other thing I was going to say. The other snapshot I just took was multiple bid conferences. SEC got 10, Big 10 9, ACC 8, Big 12 8. The Big 8 got 8, Big East got 3. So big drop off. You had 4 of them with 8 or more, and everybody else 3 or less. So that's kind of the world we live in.
10.
What was it last year? 14 out of 16?
It was ridiculous.
They got everybody but 2 last year. What do they have, 16 teams? So
I wish I had the captions on because I'm sure he's bitching about Auburn not getting in, but that was the correct call.
Yeah.
Brian, really quick to your point earlier about Mizzou getting the 10 and NC State getting the 11, it probably is just the strength of the SEC dragging them over the ACC, pushing NC State downward. No, but then Texas is the 11 playing NC State, so they must have taken Missouri over Texas to fill that 10 spot, really. If the SEC, the power of that conference probably dragged Mizzou to the 10 spot.
All right, guys, let me jump in. Odds Logic screen. Wright State is a 17.5-point underdog to Virginia. We've now seen that Missouri line drop. Missouri is now a 1.5-point underdog to Miami, Florida. My good friends in Queens, North Carolina, are 23.5-point underdogs to Purdue. Tennessee State, also a 23.5-point underdog to Iowa State. Any early initial reactions on any of those?
Tennessee State could give them an interesting game. That's Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith, first year's head coach, former Duke Blue Devil, former Penny assistant that took that job. And I believe why they were so good is I think he took at least one of his players or one of the Memphis guys with him to that team in that league. That's the Ohio Valley. So he ended up, they play super fast. They're very, very athletic. It's going to be a fast game. The reason I say that they maybe could hang, Kelly, I don't think they're going to win the game, but the reason they could hang, Iowa State offensively at times over the last 6 weeks has not been great, in my opinion. I think again, you have to put this into the context of against Big 12 teams who are obviously, some of the best teams in the country. But Rob and I noted on our show a couple of different times that, they had some real lapses offensively, down the stretch, pretty much from February on. And so when you're talking about just needing to cover a number and you face a team that's going to get up and down like Tennessee State can, and they have the athleticism, I feel like that's the right recipe for a scare. And then if you're talking about covering a big number, we know the big numbers a lot of times are, any spread is supposed to be a coin flip, right? -110 either way, especially those big ones where it could come down to the last couple possessions. I think I'd rather have Tennessee State than laying the points against them.
All right, as some of these lines start to populate, our audience is going crazy in the chat. If you guys have a game that you are already going to bet, I want to know who you guys like. Let us know, because I think I'm going to sit back. There's a couple other guys that say, hey, I'm going to sit back and let the dust settle. Steve, I know you said this has been your 30th year betting March Madness. What is the right answer there? Are you firing bets? I mean, I've got a couple of my pages open, and I feel like I got to sit back and spend a little bit more time, right?
Yeah, I'm not a bet early type of person. I mean, look, you might see something you kind of like now, and then the line's a point worse tomorrow or the day after. But I'd rather miss a play or not make the play than to jump in on something now, dig deeper the next couple of days, and realize I don't like it anymore. So I'm not jumping in on these games. Only a handful of sports books have numbers. I don't know which way these lines are moving. I don't think any of us do. And it's a lot of sharp action right now. So we might think a public is going to be on one team or the other. That doesn't matter right now. The public is not playing these games on Sunday night, just like they're not playing NFL games for the next week on Sunday night normally either. So I think we got plenty of time. Just enjoy, do your homework, and let the numbers come to you.
Oh, K-State siding on March Madness graphic. Thanks, guys, for just rubbing that one right in there. We're
They
going
announced the NIT already? What?
Yeah, well, they're
The
not
CBI,
going to
the CBG, whatever else they got.
CBI, is that what it is? They're calling it?
CBI got canceled.
They're out of
this year.
business.
The SAT.
There we go.
Yeah.
There is our
Ran out
top
of money.
four
The
seeds
SAT.
by region. Duke, Arizona, Michigan, and Florida. You guys all get a gold star. Houston, Iowa State, Purdue, UConn are the 2 seeds. So here is our bracket. I know Trig wanted to put together a bracket, but I don't really care about brackets.
Yeah.
So I
Dan
don't
Alexander, good job with the graphics.
Yes,
People don't
he's
know
doing a great
Dan
job.
is hiding behind the scenes.
we
after
love Dan
chopping wood.
Alexander.
People
I thought
don't
the
know he's
people,
with us. And
I
he's more
thought the
than just
people
a
would
script.
want to see us argue about the bracket. I don't really care to do brackets either, Cal. I was
Should we
more-
bring in the lumberjack? I mean, that's exactly what he looks like off screen right now.
Brawny.
shout out
Show
Dan
sponsored by
Alexander.
Paper
He's
Towels.
back. He's that's
Okay.
the look for rural
I
PA.
want to go. Our good friends of us over the Superbook have live national championship odds. I just had our good friend John Hoagland send over a graphic, so I apologize if it is outdated by an hour or two. But Dan's going to put that on the screen when he stops doing whatever the hell he's doing, and he's coming down to give us lacrosse bets. Dan, if you could, I want to get some
Splintering wood.
reactions from the guys in regards to if there is any value. Now, I know a lot of people are going to argue you don't want to bet any of these teams as their odds stand. You're going to want to roll it over, right? John Murray did that. So funny on Kelly and Murray 2 years ago. And then UConn actually cost us a significant amount of money because it did not work. But that in theory is what you are supposed to do. But I'm going to go around the horn. I'm going to start off with the Bryan Power. Any of these stick out to you? If I tell you right now, you have to pick a team to win it all, who are you taking? Okay, well, that was a loud sigh.
I was a loud sigh because what did we just talk about? We don't want to, I'll be honest. I don't want to pick a team outside of the top seed. So this is going to be boring. Because I feel like you wanted me to say something shocking.
Yeah, but I don't need a shocker. I just need a why.
All right. How about this?
Why can
I like it for the reasons I talked about earlier. I like Arizona. Let's talk about something else, a word that we have not mentioned yet on this program. Injuries. Michigan's dealing with injuries. Duke is dealing with injuries. Look, winning 6 games over a 3-week span. I don't need to tell you guys this, tell our fine viewers this either. It's a grind. It's a war of attrition. It's going to come down to, are you healthy at the end of this deal? Arizona, to me, because they are able to win without, necessarily being overly reliant on 3, I like this Arizona team.
Okay. All right, Adam Trigger. Pick me a winner and tell me why.
I will pick you a winner that's not a number 1 seed. The only team I would take that's not a 1 seed to win this tournament is Arkansas. Darius Jacobs, the best player in college basketball. It's not Peterson. It's not Boozer. It's not, who's the other one? Debansa. Well, he's not going to do any, the BYU is probably not going very far in this tournament. It's Acuff. I actually, now that I've had the benefit of, Rob and I sort of alluded to this maybe about 6 weeks ago. Now that I've had the benefit of the last 6 weeks watching him, I don't really even think it's that close. He is just, I feel like Arkansas wasn't even playing full speed this weekend, because that's a Calipari thing to do. That's a thing that a lot of these top seeds, Kelly, you made a point earlier in the show. Why were the top seeds not great against the number this weekend? It's because it's like a televised practice for them now. It doesn't really affect their seed, right? Like, they already knew Florida was a 1 going into this weekend, and cutting down the nets in the conference tournament is just not as big of a deal as it used to be. So this weekend kind of is like, I don't want to say it's a throwaway, but like, you can't tell me that Arkansas was playing hard until like maybe the second half of today's game. Kind of went through the motions against Oklahoma, went through the motions against Ole Miss. They were a little bit banged up down the stretch, but now they get a few days off, and it's like game, day off, game, 4 more days off. I mean, first of all, they're probably going to boat race Hawaii. I don't think Hawaii can hang around with them. And that is like the most dangerous non-1 seed, in my opinion, the Arkansas Razorbacks. So that is who I will give out as a non-1 seed. I'm not saying they're better than a 1 seed. What are they?
60-1. I mean, this is a
I'm definitely going to bet that.
For me.
I'm 1,000% betting that. That's crazy, in my opinion. They're the only one that could really, truly, otherwise, it's going to be one of those boring ones, in my opinion. There's not many teams that I think could get over the hump against one of the 4 ones. So I'll go Arkansas.
All right, I'm going to
I want to put over Trig real quick. I sat next to Trig in November. We were at Arkansas and Michigan State, and Trig looked at me and he said, it won't be true tonight. And Arkansas lost that game in East Lansing. But he said at the end of the year, don't be surprised if Arkansas is the better of these 2 teams and is a legit Final Four contender. So I want to just put over my colleague there.
I'm so proud of you. First of all, thank you, BP. Second, I'm so proud of you that you remembered that after the Sparta and the rocket boosters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know. That's
rocket
amazing.
Boosters. Okay.
Yeah, you know what a rocket booster is, Kel? That is a blueberry vodka lemonade that is at Toledo, and it's got the big rocket on it. We had a few of those before we went to East Lansing. So I only had one.
You only had one. BP had 6. All right, Rob Veno, you are next. Tell me, let's get that graphic back up from our friends at the Westgate Superbook. I apologize if it is a little outdated. This was before the games went off the board. I'm sure there's going to be some adjustments, but I'm generally curious. Again, I've got Iowa State 30-1, and now they're only still 25-1. Like, come on, man, nice 2 seed. So it's not like Florida for me last year, where I, had a 40-1 ticket in pocket in December, and then had a 1 seed going into it. But they are a 2 seed. Any other? Do you like anything higher than a 2 or 3 seed? I know Trig's trying to come out strong with Arkansas there.
Well, I mean, I totally concur with Trig from that perspective, because before we even knew the bracket, my comment was Arkansas was probably the 5th best team. They should have been a 2 seed and not a 4. So I agree with him that they've got the ability above anybody to do this. I think there was a point in time, Kelly, where I thought Illinois was going to be that type of team, and maybe they still will be. They're so good offensively, and they can play defense when they want to, and they can rebound when they have to, and they have bigs that can shoot threes. They've got so much talent, but they faded down the stretch, which deters me a little bit. And then I'll be, concur with Trig, and then I'll concur with Bryan Power that my number 1 choice would be Arizona. The only thing that frightens me about Arizona, and the only thing, because they've proven from start to finish that they'll go anywhere, play anybody, and they'll win games. And it shouldn't even be a concern right now, but they have so many freshmen. Koa Pete, freshman. Braden Burries, freshman. Karchenkov, freshman. But I'll say it again, Jaden Bradley might not be the best point guard, but he's the most underrated point guard in the country. And I think I don't have a lot of faith. I never have had a lot of faith if we start to get into coaches in Tommy Lloyd winning everything. But I think he's got the best arsenal to do so. Any of those 4 could win it. But at this point in time, mine would be Arizona. And as an outside shot, I do think Arkansas is probably the 5th best team in the nation right now. It's not just Darius Acuff that everybody talks about, because Billy Richmond showed today, and Brazil and all these guys that they have. That's a good basketball team.
Okay. Steve Merril, last but certainly not least. Tell me that you're not going to give me a 1 seed here. And Steve Merril somehow turned off his camera.
Whoa.
What the hell?
Because he's hardwired. Running AI.
At least he's running AI. I
was wondering why I was sideways there. Now, I was running some numbers, you smart arses. I got some stuff for you. So we're going to pick a 1 seed for a few reasons. First of all, last year, all 4 1 seeds made the Final Four, and it's happened a few other times.
Do you
I don't
think that's going to be the case this year? Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, Kelly, I don't think it's a fluke.
Okay.
Because the richer have gotten richer the last few years with this NIL stuff. The weaker have gotten weaker. So I don't think that was a fluke. I'm just looking at some notes here. Even though I run AI, I use back of envelopes for some of this stuff. So this is stuff I'll mention more. Kelly and I are going to do a lot of videos tomorrow. I'll be doing videos every day this week covering all the games, other tidbits and whatnot. But just some quick stuff. I mean, the 1 seeds, if you go back over the last 25 years or so, the 1 seeds have still won like 60% of those tournaments. Like, I think 16 of the last 23 to be exact. A 2 or 3 seed has won another 5 of them. So if I'm not mistaken, I think a top 3 seed has won 21 of the last 23. The only time a 4 and a 7 won it, well, we'll look back when UConn was a 4 seed when they won it, I believe, and they were still like top 4. That was 2 years ago. They were top 4 in the Ken Palms, though. So they were vastly underseeded 4th team. And then you look at UConn did it also as a 7 seed back in 2014. A 1, 2, 7, 8 made the Final Four. And then when UConn won as a 3 seed in 2011, 3 of the Final Four teams, 3, 11, 9, and 8 seeds, they were the highest seed as a 3 seed in the Final Four. So historically speaking, it's going to be a 1 or 2. If you look at the bracket, CBS had this. They added up all the net rankings, I guess is what they were using for the 4 teams in each region. The easiest region is Arizona's. So going back to what Brian talked about at Arizona. And I also like what Brian said, too. They don't rely heavily on the 3. They rank top 50 in tempo, which is fast. But like a year ago, they were the 3rd fastest team in the country. So they're a little bit slower. And last year, Florida finished in the 50s with tempo, and they won the whole thing. So I haven't, as you know, Kelly, I've been saying Michigan and Duke basically all year, and everyone gets mad at me when I don't include Arizona. Arizona's a really good team, and I do think maybe it's setting up well for them. You look at the other teams in the region, it was like Purdue, Gonzaga, and Arkansas. None of them are even top 7 in the net ratings. So it is setting up well for Arizona, but all 4 of these 1 seeds are really strong. They all have really good metrics overall.
All right, really quickly, guys, I got to tell you about our March Madness special over at WagerTalk.com. March Madness Bonanza. Sign up with your favorite handicapper through the national championship. No coupon code needed, just $149. So you can take advantage of Bryan Power, Rob Veno, Adam Trigger, or Steve Merril over on WagerTalk.com. Don't like any of those guys? Well, don't worry. We got lots more of them. I'm kidding, Bryan Power. You should have seen his face off camera. I love to rouse Bryan Power. Bryan Power, let's talk about some of the narratives, right?
Yes.
I like, this is why Marco and I do so well on Bet On It, by the way. Bet On It Tuesday. We're filming early this week. Steve Merril and I are doing a bunch of stuff tomorrow. Marco, VR, and I are doing a Bet On It episode on Tuesday. We'll be out Tuesday afternoon. And I do like some of those situational spots. Are there any narratives or any revenge angles, anything you're seeing playing out throughout this entire bracket? Or is this just going to kind of just be a boring first round? I love those, like this coach hates that coach. This kid transferred from that school, or these guys knocked each other out 2 years ago in the big dance.
So I want to pick up on something that Steve just mentioned, that I think coming into this tournament, the general sort of consensus that we have regarding upsets. You go back to last year, what happened, and Steve's point is well taken about what the transfer portal, NIL, and the like have done. There's a wider gap now between the top and the middle in college basketball, and they're certainly much larger than 10 years ago. But this tournament, what we've been hearing, and I've certainly said it multiple times here on Wager Talk TV, and I think we're all in agreement, hey, this is the top 4 is by far stronger than the rest of the field. We've got a top 10, 11, 12 that are much stronger than the rest, right? I mean, we've kind of had the same consensus top 12 teams in the country all year. I wonder, though, if we're at a point where, last year we weren't all saying, oh, there's going to be no upsets in this tournament. And there weren't, but that wasn't the general consensus going into that tournament. I wonder if narratively, that was the question I believe you posed to me, Kelly, if maybe there will be more upsets than we think. Because, when we go into a tournament thinking there's not going to be many upsets, that's when upsets tend to happen, right? And it goes to the point that you guys, a lot of us have made. These top teams don't have great ATS records, right? Maybe the top teams are overvalued coming into this tournament. Now, I mean, there's not as I've been looking through, I know this is an instant reaction show, and I'm trying to just come up with instant reactions for all you guys. I mean, there's not like one upset that jumps out to me off the page. I'll say one lower seed that I don't like to draw at all was Wright State. I watched a lot of the Horizon League. Wright State, I think, is going to struggle against Virginia. Mick Cronin having to go to the East Coast, I'm sure he's going to complain about that. He has to go to Philadelphia. I'm sure he's not happy about that. I'm sure he's going to do an interview within the next 24 hours complaining. So I just wonder if, we're all saying, hey, how strong the top of college basketball is in 2026. Does that open the path? Are we sleeping on some teams? And maybe there will be.
I certainly hope you're right. I mean, last year, again, no complaints because I had the Florida Gators. And yes, they made me sweat a few of those games. But the reality was the year prior, UConn just cruised. But at least we had upsets. Like I was in Mexico, and then the Splash guys called me and they said, hey, Kelly, we got to redo a revival. I said, what? And they go, half of your contest just went out with Duquesne beating BYU. I was at like some little margarita bar. And of course I was cheering for it, but I didn't realize, right out of the gate, a sizable favorite losing is so much. That's what March is to me, right? And being at Westgate Superbook this year on Thursday, I hope that we get a few of those like really exciting late breaking games where the dog can get the outright win. So I hope you're right for betting standpoint. I hope you're right for an excitement standpoint. Steve Merril, I don't know if he agrees. Sean in the comment section just said Cinderellas are dead, Kelly.
Yeah, first of all, Seth Davis is doing his Final Four, so we got to pay attention here so we don't fade. Clark Kellogg, he just picked Arizona. We're dead, Brian.
Okay, I'm changing my pick. I need to scrub it.
Clark Kellogg, and I wasn't watching until now. Clark Kellogg right before him picked Purdue to win the whole thing. Very interesting.
That's not happening.
No, it's not. Well, except for the fact that they're in that Arizona region, which is an easier region. But yeah, that's just insane. And these guys get paid more than we do, apparently. Kelly, I looked at it. 7 of the last 8 national champs have been 1 seeds. 7 of the last 8. So, I mean, it's not like it's getting weaker. It's getting stronger. It's 16 out of 23, but it's 7 out of 8.
Listen, I don't mind.
And all the 1 seeds made it last year.
I don't mind a 1 seed, one of the best teams actually winning. But throughout the round of 64, throughout the Sweet 16, like I just want to see 1 or 2 Cinderellas get in, 1 or 2 upsets.
Kelly, there's hope for you because 7 of the last 8 have been number 1 seeds, but the only 2 times a 1 has lost to a 16 has happened during that 8-year span, I believe. So that goes back to what we're talking about. The early rounds are totally different than picking 6 straight wins, right? Winning in a row, 6 in a row is a lot different than a Cinderella upset. I think we'll still have plenty of those because teams take more 3-point shots than they ever have in history. And that's going to be the great equalizer in a one-and-done scenario. But to win 6 games in a row, it's the death blow to have to rely on the 3 like that.
I will say this really quickly, Bryan Power, and then you can jump in. I sent you guys a tweet earlier. I cannot remember who it was from, but he was talking about the winner of March Madness had a winning record during the regular season, 23 out of the last 25 years. So keep in mind, good ATS.
Are you talking spread or straight up? Of course,
ATS.
they had Okay, I was going to say, of course they had a winning straight up record. Okay, you mean against the spread?
Yeah, against the spread. So
that's interesting.
That made you money throughout the season are going to make you money throughout.
Kelly, we're using that tomorrow in the videos. I was not aware of that one.
Yeah, so I'll resend it to you on the side.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Bryan Power, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we're all going to be, when the dust settles and we get to the Final Four, yes, I expect to see the top teams. But just to clarify my previous point, there were not a lot of upsets in the first round last year. And I think coming into this year, there's an expectation that there may not be that many either. And you can get in trouble trying to be upset guy. Steve made fun of Seth Davis, and deservedly so there. He's always notorious for picking every 12 and 13 seed to win. But, I think it's just something interesting to watch that we've told ourselves all year that these 12 and 13 seeds are at more of a disadvantage than ever before. We shall see. I think that's the interesting thing. Just another random reaction. Again, I believe this is an instant reaction show. Illinois, I kind of like their chance of getting the Sweet 16. You look at their first 2 rounds. I think Penn, God bless Fran McCaffrey. I know you know him very well, Adam Trigger. I think Penn is going to struggle to get stops in that first round game. And then North Carolina VCU, I would favor, obviously, Illinois heavily against the winner of that matchup as well.
Hey Kelly, real quick on that ATS angle. I was going to say before I forget, that's overall. That's after the tournament. That means teams have probably gone 4-2 or 5-1 in the tournament against the spread. So got to be a little careful with that. I'd like to see what the pre-tournament ATS record was. That would mean a lot more to me if that makes sense, because it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you win the whole thing, you've probably covered most of those 6 games.
All right, Trig, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say you asked like coaches that don't really like each other. I think Fran and Underwood don't really care for each other, if I remember correctly.
Fran versus
Formerly
Underwood.
Illinois, Iowa, had a lot of good games over the years
Yeah.
when he was at Iowa. To go back to something else, someone said 3-point shooting, and it made me think of a game that we talked about earlier. And I'm over here trying to also run my numbers. I actually think Troy is live against Nebraska for a couple of reasons. One, both teams play very slow. Like from a overall pace standpoint, you would think that there's not going to be a ton of possessions in that game. So obviously lower number of possessions, but you have a lower number of possessions, but a high number of 3-point shots attempted. Nebraska games are always very 3-point variants, right? Like they have one of the higher 3-point variances, I think, of anyone. Certainly when they play like teams, obviously they've got a couple of different ways they could go against a team like Troy, but when they're playing in the Big Ten, it's very much like if the threes are falling, it dictates how that game is going to go. I mean, certainly against the number 14 at Caesars right now seems big. I don't know if Troy can do it and pull the outright upset, but Troy has a win over Veno. Help me out. They beat someone and they took San Diego State to 3 OTs earlier this year. So they played good when they played up. I think USC. I think they may have beat USC and then lost a triple OT game like in the same weekend. Scott Cross is a tremendous coach. He's a guy that's been at that level for a while. Like if someone was going to put a game plan together to pull one of those early round upsets, I like Scott Cross, Troy, and that matchup for the Trojans. Certainly like the plus 14. So
yeah, remember real quick, Trig, and I know we kind of shoved it to the side when it happened, but the MAC Sunbelt Saturday that happened, and Akron went down to Troy, and Akron got their doors blown in. Now we could justify it by saying, well, what does Akron care about that game? But still, it was the highest level of the MAC against Troy, and it wasn't a contest from the get-go. It was never a contest. So totally agree that Troy can hang there.
Don't Nebraska and Akron play similar at times in terms of like the looks that they generate? Like Akron takes a lot of threes too. So that might be your comp game a little.
And I think the difference between the two, which we talk about a lot too, is that Nebraska has Rank Mast, right? And he's going to be the big that's going to drag you away from the rim. And Akron isn't really loaded with bigs. Who's going to chase this guy? But maybe you put small guys on him and just slap at the ball. Sometimes that bothers bigs more than anything else. So I would agree Troy was live. Kelly, to the point.
Here's another good point. Clint just reminded me. Nebraska's never won a tournament game. From a situational standpoint, you would think, oh my God, they got to get this monkey off their back, but that's a lot of pressure.
And they may have peaked, Kelly. Honestly, I think Nebraska might have peaked. They might have played their best
Kansas City versus my Wildcats. Yeah.
And so maybe that's a reason to look that way too. But I think when you were asking the question earlier, and we're trying to dig for underdogs that could be possible money line bets, I've never looked at a board and seen so many underdogs plus points that I want to bet. So I think from the line of business we're in, where we categorize winners and losers a little differently than anybody else with standings, we just want you to cover a spread. I think there's a lot of underdogs that are live out there in this opening round.
All right. I want to go a couple, let's just take this until we stop seeing growth. I mean, we got 41,000 people watching us right now, which is just, well, kind of insane.
Wow.
But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on Selection Sunday here on WagerTalk TV. I really want to I know that it's early, but I really want to give the people what they're looking for, and that is some early bets. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do round table, and we're going to say, all right, who is your best value play, right, for your first round matchup? That means I want an underdog that you guys think, hey, they're going to cover the spread. But maybe, just maybe, we should look at that money line sprinkle like I did not do today with Penn and might still be kicking myself. You guys, I have really started pussing out on some of these money line sprinkles. Football season, all day. College basketball, man. There have been so many times that I'm like, why didn't I just a little bit? Like, just 10% on the money line. I know you guys are all looking. I feel like I'm staring down it going, USF. I just watched this team, but man, you guys in the comments section seem to love that play. So I'm going to open up the odds logic screen. I'm going to open up the floor to whoever's ready to go first. And then I want to give out a Trig. Are you ready to go? Do you have an underdog?
Yeah. I mean, I was looking for a second one for you because I just gave Troy. So
Okay.
I'll go, but I can go. I'll go
Okay.
back to something. I'll go back to a game we talked about earlier. I think the numbers probably, so if you want which one I think is a better bet right now, just having quickly looked at like what my numbers are going to be relative to where this opened, I would say Troy is probably the better one, but I'll go back to Northern Iowa St. John's. I'm right sort of in that 10 range. But again, this is a St. John's team that can have trouble shooting. And, you know, like I think Northern Iowa, the way that they're so disciplined playing defense like that's I could see Northern Iowa, like, plus a lot of my buddies from Siena actually live down near the city, and they are St. John's fans just from growing up. They're like all complaining in the chat right now about that matchup. And I kind of see why. Northern Iowa's they're so well coached. And now that they're full strength, you know, going back to like what Rob was saying, they played a stretch of the season, maybe 5 or 6 weeks. And in the beginning of conference play without multiple of their best players. They got healthy and they sort of tore through the Valley tournament, which is like, that's a tough league. That's a tough tournament to just dominate and win like that. I would not be that surprised if Northern Iowa won that game outright. But at worst, like St. John's does not shoot it well enough to blow teams out at this point. And yeah, I know they beat a bad UConn team by 20 the other day, but I think UConn maybe gave up a little bit at the end of that game. In this game, I think you're going to see Northern Iowa plays very slow. So you're not going to have those transition points. St. John's loves to get out, score in transition. If they don't have that, I think you could be sweating if you're the Johnny. So I'll say Northern Iowa plus 10.
No, you can get. I'm shocked. 10.5, even starting to populate right now in the odds.
That sounds right. I think I make it like 10.4. It looks like I'm going to make it. So it might even get to 11 or 11.5. It might not be done going.
I'm just shocked. And then Akron is just getting absolutely pummeled. We're starting to see 7.5s down from 9.5 here at the opener. Missouri's getting bet. Utah State's now up to 2.5. I'm kind of shocked here. Rob Veno, I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me who you think has some real serious value here in this first round, particularly to get the outright win. High Point, down to from 13 down to 11.5. Good grief.
Well, that's right where I was going to go, Kelly. I think it would, you know, I'm not trying to be Joe Hot Take here, but I honestly think that High Point plus 11. Take. Yeah, but I mean, people think, oh, he's just pulling that out his ass. If he's right, and he lives on that forever. I think High Point has a legitimate chance here. Listen, Wisconsin's based on Boyd and Blackwell, the two backcourt guys for that team. And High Point has the guards that can go out and maybe frustrate them into bad shooting days. And High Point can play with pace. Wisconsin could get caught up in a track meet with High Point where all of a sudden they're trying to come from behind. Wisconsin's had to play without Nolan Winter for the last 3-4 games. Not necessarily their best big, but one in a series of bigs that's probably necessary when you're calling for depth in these tournaments. I don't know how Wisconsin actually prepares for High Point. And, you know, Greg Gard's a pretty good coach, but I don't know how you sit there and try and be ready for what they're going to bring. They're a team from a low major that dominated their low major conference and that has the weaponry that kind of matches up with Wisconsin. So to me, even though they're a smaller team, I think they're smaller and they're probably more pests than anything else to Wisconsin here, who, again, they come off the high of playing really well in that tournament. I don't know. I think 11 is way too much to give. And I see 11.5s out there. That's where it opened. It's still, that 11.5 opener still stands in some places. So, yeah, I would give you a High Point. And I would also say really quick, I had one more here that now I'm losing ground on. Obviously, South Florida makes sense to me. Somebody already said that, though. You know what? I think McNeese could have potential against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt comes off of that, you know, loss today, played their hearts out through the tournament. And McNeese is still, even though it's not Will Wade, and even though it's not the exact same level of talent, they came off a triple overtime game in the semifinals
All right, Steve Merril, give me a barking dog, if you will. I know you're not on Bet On It with me, but that is my favorite segment every single week in college football. So, of course, it's going to transition well to college basketball.
First, I got to get you back to sprinkling. You should always sprinkle a little bit on the money line dogs, and you got to do it consistently, Kelly. You can't pick and choose your spots, and you know this. Kelly knows this. I'm just saying this for all the viewers that don't know it. First of all, whether it's the NFL, NBA, really any sport, I do think when you like a point spread underdog, you probably have to think they have a chance to win the game. Because in most sports, unless we're talking about like 30-point dogs in football or basketball, if the underdog covers, a lot of times they do win the game outright. So it's always worth putting a small percentage and just keep it consistent. And obviously at a 23-point dog, you don't have to put much on the money line for a big payout still. So you can do it proportionally. But the flip side of that is I do not recommend playing money line favorites. You hear this, lay the money line instead of the -1, lay the money line instead of the -2. I don't believe in that. I know a lot of cappers do, and some of you all might, but basically play the point spread favorite, play the underdog point spread with some of it on the money line. I'll go back to Northern Iowa. It's one we've touched on several times here, but it really has several setups that I like. The slowest half-court team in the country out of 365, Northern Iowa. St. John's prefers to play fast. That one definitely could go down to the wire, which makes them a live dog. Also, we look at Wisconsin and Louisville being favorites that rely heavily on the three-point shot. So here again, I think those dogs by definition, of course, South Florida's catching +6, 6.5, and High Point catching the 10.5 to 11.5. If the threes are not falling for Wisconsin or Louisville, those dogs are live as well. So I think that's something else you look at when you're looking for live dogs in March Madness.
Absolutely. Bryan Power, you are up.
Yeah, I suppose I can't say Northern Iowa as well because that would make it very boring. So let me go to the MAC, and I'll stump for Akron against Texas Tech. Look, among teams from traditional one-bid leagues, Akron was the best. I think I tweeted this, Trig, to you, I don't know, some cold winter night in January or something like that. I said in terms of true mid-majors, I thought Akron was the best. All year. Remember, if Akron had played Miami of Ohio which didn't come to fruition in the MAC tourney final, Akron was going to be favored. And I think they would have been favored, but what do we think? 3.5? I think they would have gone off. I think Akron would have been an extremely popular bet, and odds makers would have made you pay if you wanted to take Akron in that situation. We didn't find out. But look, Texas Tech without Toppin, they can be shaky. And I think Akron, I would agree with the Northern Iowa talk as well, but Akron is another one I would throw out there. And as a proud Mid-American Conference graduate, I don't disagree with what Rob said because it was fact about the MAC Sunbelt Challenge. I will point out all those games were played at Sunbelt sites, though, on the MAC. So that was one thing. Other than Miami of Ohio, who was obviously playing to maintain their unbeaten season, the MAC, I don't think really cared on that particular Saturday. Maybe I'm wrong, though.
All right. As a surprise to no one, I tried to get Trig to talk more about this game, but I'm going to fade the Kansas Jayhawks in the first round. I'm going to take the 14.5 here with Cal Baptist. And the real reason is the same reason why I've been looking to bet against KU as a favorite in either on the road or in neutral sites all season long. This team has some real issues. There is a guy in the locker room named Darren Peterson who decides when he is or is not going to play. And like Rob Veno said, of course he's going to play because he's got to show off so he can become the #1 overall pick. But as a guy who sandbagged it all season long, I'm not sure that he's just going to be able to turn that on, especially against a Cal Baptist team that actually has a really good defense. Actually, shout out Andrew. They look vulnerable. That is a great point. Blue blood, public team, Steve Merril. Talk to me about why I'm just being a hater.
Well, yeah, I can't take your word when you're talking about the Jayhawks, right? It's going to be biased, as it should be.
Listen, they have a big problem turning the ball over. They don't get boards.
Well, here's what jumps out to me about Kansas. First of all, they're not even a top 50 offensive efficiency this year, which is very unusual for the Jayhawks. And if you look historically, almost every national champ has been like top 10, if not top 20, basically. So I think offensively they're going to be challenged. And I bring that up because if you're going to win 5-6 games in a row, you can't have that offensive night. Now, with that said, Kansas is 10th defensively in the efficiency rankings. They don't play quite as fast as they've played in years past. And they did play, I believe, the toughest schedule in the country. So there are some things going for them there, Kelly, but I'm not a huge believer in Kansas either. I think they probably come up short at some point. And they also struggle on the road at times. I talked about that earlier. Keep in mind, these are all road games. And Kansas is not necessarily the strongest road team in the country this year either. And they don't force turnovers. A lot of things about Kansas. It's very mediocre this year.
All right, guys. I want to do one last round table. We're doing hot takes. I'm going to pivot. Rob knows that for social media, I love when people say outrageous things and then they come to fruition. It's just funny because people get angry and they tell us how much we suck and then we get to be right. So Trig, I'm going to let you go first and you can tell me why UConn isn't going to make it out of the round of 32.
Well, I mean, I don't even think that's that hot of a take. They're probably going to have to play UCLA in the next round. Like that'll be a really difficult game if they draw that game. Like UCLA can pressure their guards. Like that's a tough game, but I'll give you a hot take. Miami of Ohio wins multiple games. That's my hot take. Here's why I think that could be. Here's why
Power just got hot.
Here's why I think that could be possible. So first of all, they're an underdog. They're going to play earlier this week in Dayton. This team hasn't been an underdog in a while, but they've been hunted by every single team in that conference. So Miami of Ohio has had to go out there for the last month and a half and be everyone's biggest game. And they won every single time until an 11 a.m. game against UMass, which is kind of like shitty, in my opinion, that they got put in that spot. But it doesn't even matter because they're still in the tournament. Now they get to be the underdog. They haven't been the underdog all year. Now they get to be the dog against an SMU team who's not very good. That this team is a middling ACC team. They're the one team I think you could have left out of this tournament. Like they're just, they're average. Edwards has been hurt. I'd have to see his status, but I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. To me, that's a relatively even matchup. You're going to have the home crowd in Dayton. The next game, Kelly, Tennessee, once you get past Gillespie and Ament, I think it is, Rob, right? Is it Nate Ament? Am I getting his name correct? I butcher names on Rob and I's show all the time, so I have to ask him. When you get outside of those two guys, Tennessee has no scores. So what are they going to do if Miami of Ohio suddenly like hot offensively, Suter's hitting shots, they space the floor out? I watched Tennessee come up here and lose to Syracuse. I think that team's been a little bit overrated all year. So Miami of Ohio winning 2 games is my hot take.
Okay, so they've got to beat SMU, and then they would play Tennessee.
Yes.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I'm not wearing Tennessee orange, by the way. This is WagerTalk orange, in case you guys cared. So I have no issues with Trig's hot take there. Boy, oh boy. Bryan Power, give me a hot take. Like I said, you really upset Pacers fans last year. Let's see who you can upset this year.
I felt very strongly and passionately about that one, Kelly. So let's see. I don't want to just say something for the sake of saying it. I will say in the past, we have seen, I don't have the exact number in front of me. I could look it up after I'm done babbling here, but we have seen teams from that play-in round win 2 games. Since the inception of the play-in round, we have seen that more often than not. I know that one of those teams makes it to the round of 32. What is a hot take that I can give you? As I look through, I think Duke could be the only ACC team to make the Sweet 16.
Woo-hoo.
I think the ACC has stunk most of this year. I think it is, I think it is certainly well behind the other top 3 conferences. I'm just looking to see who could foil me here. North Carolina, I've been much lower on than the pollsters all year. I think this is a fringe top 25 team at best. People have gotten very upset at me when I say that. SMU, I concur with Trig, could have been left out. Oklahoma's a better team than SMU. I understand why SMU was picked over Oklahoma to make the tournament, but let me tell you something. Miami, Ohio, I can tell you in Oxford, they're much happier to be playing SMU than they would be Oklahoma in that particular matchup. I guess Virginia is the one team that could wreck that. And I hate the matchup for Wright State there. And Virginia would interestingly play, if Trig is correct, Miami of Ohio. But I don't know. I'm not high on the ACC. I think other than Duke, this conference is making no noise whatsoever. I could see them being the only Sweet 16 team for that league.
All right, Steve Merril, give me a hot take, particularly how many SEC teams are going to be in the Elite 8?
I was going to say, Brian, Trig's hot take is correlated. They would both need Miami of Ohio to beat Virginia, because I think Virginia is probably the other team. They're a top 3 seed that could make it. But yeah, the ACC, if I'm not mistaken, last year I think they only had 3 teams in the tournament, and now they got 8 this year. So that did jump out to me, Brian, that they got like double the teams in this year. I still feel like that's a dying conference from my heyday as a youth in the 80s watching the ACC powerhouse in the Big East. Kelly, I don't have a real hot take because I think the 1 seeds are going to do well. I think that the cream is going to rise. So I will save my hot take for when we do multiple videos tomorrow on Monday, because I know you want some hot takes and controversy for those social media clips. So I will dive in tonight and do additional research to find multiple hot takes. Don't give you one today, but I'll give you 2 or 3 tomorrow if that suffices, because that'll make up for it. But real quick, just looking at like the top 2 and 3 seeds from each region. I mentioned Clark Kellogg picked Purdue to win the whole thing. I thought was comical. I didn't even realize they were a 2 seed. They're actually seated ahead of Gonzaga in that region. And then Arkansas is behind them. I'm looking at Illinois. I thought Illinois would probably be a 2 seed. They're actually seated as a 3 seed. But you look at Illinois, they rely heavily on the 3-point shot as well. I just think you got to be really careful with teams like that to go multiple games. While Illinois can win at any given game, it's going to be hard for them to win 5 or 6 in a row.
Okay, Robbie, hot takes. You have the floor.
Well, I don't know if Gonzaga not making the Sweet 16 qualifies as a really hot take, but I don't think they're going to get there. They may get past Kennesaw, but I would say that any of the 3 that they have the option of playing after that, BYU, NC State, or Texas, could beat Gonzaga. I'm just not that high on them this year. But I'll give you something that's red hot. And if it does come true, it's going to be red hot. VCU could make the Sweet 16, and they're going to have to go through some people to do it. But VCU's got the type of team they're going to have to go through UNC for starters. No Caleb Wilson, not a ton of defense. Not the way me and Trig expected them to play defense this year with all the size that they had. So I think they can get there. And then the second one would have to be a win against Illinois, who, as I said earlier, at one point in time, I thought they could be like that next level team that could win the whole thing. They've kind of been sporadic. Their best day, VCU doesn't win. But if VCU catches them on a weekday, they could give them trouble. So I'll go with red hot take. VCU makes Sweet 16.
Kelly, since I didn't give one, I'm going to endorse his hot take if I'm allowed to do that. Because, UNC, a very up and down team without their best player the rest of the season. And then, as I just said, Illinois is a dicey team in any given scenario. So, Rob, I think you could be onto something there. I like it.
All right, guys, almost 45,000 of you watching live. And so I'm really hesitant by saying like, hey, we've kind of ran through the regions. We've kind of given you guys some upsets. We've given you our early thoughts. But then I just got a text from my buddy, and the WBC is coming in. My favorite country in the Caribbean is the Dominican Republic, and they are playing the United States. And so I'm kind of like, do we keep doing March Madness stuff, or do I go meet my friends for margaritas to watch the WBC? And I think right now margaritas is a $2 favorite. So I'm going to give you guys each, we're going to take it to 7:30. I'm going to give you guys each to have the floor to promote yourselves and to give any other information that you didn't get to give out on the show that you think our loyal Wager Talk listeners need to know before making that first March Madness bet.
Oh, I'm going to step in then if I don't hear a voice. Listen, Adam and I are going to be right back at it tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., full court press. There's no games, but I know we'll have a boatload to talk about, including NIT, which we haven't hit on here. But you give us the rest of this evening, overnight, and tomorrow morning to come up with some good angles for you, and we will do that. So full court press tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Also, for those of you who are going to get involved in March Madness, the big tournament and the NIT, our double the CBB firepower package 3-day, or at this point, 3-day really shouldn't even be an option. Just go right through the national championship game. Both are offered at wagertalk.com. You can get Adam's plays all the way through. You can get my plays all the way through. I always say it's a pretty good package to have because there's a huge mix of sides that come from Adam, totals that come from me. So you get a lot of perspective here. Once again, that's double the CBB firepower selection package. And also check us out, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Wager Talk TV, full court press.
Adam, I'll
Rob,
let you just jump in.
Yeah, well, I just realized that I didn't even realize we were doing a show in the morning, but it makes sense. So I guess we're just answering questions.
It's March
well, there's no game.
Madness.
There's no games, Kelly. There's no games. So
There's lots
that's
of
what I
games
mean.
to talk about.
I guess it's just show up and ask questions about anything. Maybe Rob and I will do the NIT show in the morning.
Yeah,
Just ask questions about the
Let's do
NIT.
it.
That's right up our alley. I'm just saying.
It's funny. Normally, Trig is the guy to push the show on me, and today I'm pushing.
I know. I guess I just was.
What do you mean it's Thanksgiving?
There's no games.
Exactly.
No, I'm all for
no
it.
days off.
I'm all for it. No, I'm ready. I'm ready to rock. You're right, Rob. We'll probably have more opinions as lines get out, some stuff gets bet. I guess I'll throw one more potential dog into the mix. Hofstra's got some really good shot makers on that team. Cruz Davis, like they were the best shot making team. And I'd even be curious to see if Steve agrees, like in that Coastal this year, in terms of like a team that just makes tough shot after tough shot. Hofstra was like by far the best in my opinion. I mentioned the other day before I took Ole Miss and they beat Alabama outright that Alabama defensively has had some issues and they've been ranking outside of like the top 60 in, some of the key defensive metrics. So you give me good shot making team against team that really just has not been that impressive defensively that will let you shoot at times because that's Alabama's more interested in rim three and doing their thing on offense. They will give you the jump shot. If Hofstra's hitting those shots, that's one I could see. That may be a dog I play against the number because I could see them putting a scare in Alabama in that 3-14 matchup.
Okay. All right. One other thing I just saw on X while we were talking that I thought was really interesting was that UCLA has to go all the way to Philly. Yeah. And I kind of was looking at that game. I'm just going to put a pin in it. Like you guys said, we've got plenty of time between now and when the games tip off on Thursday morning. Splashsports.com/Kelly in Vegas. You guys, we've got a March Madness Survivor contest. Get involved. $25. You can have basically as many entries as you want, but by a legal standpoint, you're only allowed to have 150. If you have 150, I need you to reassess some things. I've got 8. We'll leave it at that. I've got 8. I'm in for $200. That way I can differentiate, if you will. All right, Steve Merril, anything you'd like to leave our audience with? I know you mentioned that we're going to be doing videos tomorrow. Me and you, we're going to be talking about some of the frauds, maybe the blue bloods that happen to be frauds. We're going to talk about Cinderellas, even though you like all of the 1 seeds. I want to get into some of the weeds with that stuff with you. And then, of course, I'm assuming you're going to be doing a Fade the Public video as well this week.
Yeah, Adam, just to answer your question about Hofstra, I almost mentioned that earlier when we were talking about dogs because that is a team I have my eye on. I saw them play in person this year. I've seen them play multiple times on TV as well in the CAA. And they've got a guy named Cruz Davis, who's one of the best players in the country. Not just the CAA, best player in the conference, but one of the best players in the country. NBA potential. Reminds me of like a Damian Lillard. He's like 6'3", shoots the three-point shot well, can dunk at that size. Was at St. John's and redshirted a couple years ago. I believe he was at Iona before that. So you would have seen him briefly play as a freshman. We haven't talked about key players, but that's something else in March Madness that these guys can go off. Guys that are good offensive players like that can carry a team. And Hofstra plays slow half-court basketball. They have a better defense than Alabama. And they actually have the third best two-point percentage defense in the nation this year. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup as a 13-point dog. And yes, Kelly, I will have more information on games like that. In fact, every game on the board this week, I will be doing free play videos across the board. We'll start with the first 4 on Tuesday and Wednesday. You and I are going to record some clips tomorrow on Monday, which we'll be posting throughout the week as well. It's so simple. Click subscribe and click the bell here on WagerTalk TV for an instant alert, and you will never miss out when free play videos are posted throughout the week for March Madness. Thumbs up, like, comment below as well, and we'll keep the videos and the shows coming. And if you'd like all of my best bets for March Madness, we have the 149 Bonanza special is still available right now on WagerTalk.com. No promo code needed. Every play through the championship for $1.49. Actually, it's $1.49. I'd say $1.49. It's not $1.49. $1.49. And down in Alexander is on top of it. I checked today, 3 days. Buy 3 days, get 3 days free is still available. Not for much longer, though. And I do have a best bet going in the Knicks game tonight on the over-under in that Knicks national TV game tonight at 8 Eastern on NBC. So if you're watching this live, you might want to get my NBA best bet tonight because I'm 68-47 the last 3.5 months on NBA best bets. I know we're talking college hoops, but hey, the NBA is cashing as well. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, and get there quicker, wt.buzz/SM.
All right, Bryan Power, you have the last 90 seconds. We just hit 45,000 views. I'm shocked. I mean, I thought competing with CBS and those guys was not going to be great, but apparently you guys are ready to, fire off some bets here in March.
Well, I believe this was a better show than CBS's show, and that show was on mute. That's how confident I am that this one was better. Look, I'll tell 45,000 people that I am by no means done talking about the NCAA tournament. From here, I will go to Zeno duty on the morning wager, as I'm sure he will have probably 72,000 things to say about this bracket. I think we're just going to give instant reaction on Monday's show. We'll talk the NBA as well on Monday. We might even be recording that this evening. I have to check with his always busy schedule. And then, of course, I believe I am on WagerTalk today on my usual Tuesday spot as well, breaking down one of the first 4 games I believe I have been designated for assignment. So I look forward to that. And, of course, like all these guys mentioned, $149 rest of the college basketball season. Cannot beat that.
Wow. What a show, guys. Shout out to all of you. Like Steve Merril said, make sure that you click that thumbs up button if you learned something today, if you liked something today, if you just were happy to be here. We appreciate you guys. And even if you hate us, still thank you for watching, because we love every single one of you guys. I hope you guys have a profitable March Madness. If you guys are going to be in Vegas, come by the Westgate Superbook. Say hello to me. Again, videos tomorrow with Steve Merril. Some TNA with Ralph Michaels. So I'm going to make Ralph dig deep into the bracketology. We're going to talk about 314s, 12-5s, and so forth. Maybe even that 15-2 that Adam wanted Siena to be. And then, of course, Bet on it Tuesday afternoon. Should be out. We're filming Tuesday morning. Me, Marco D'Angelo VR. We're going to give you all of our best bets for that first round. Hope you guys have a great night. I am off for margaritas.